I thought I'd make everybody's day brighter by talking about social care and the provision of it, or lack of provision of it, currently. I have been involved with a group in the Leicestershire County Council, the Adult and Social Care group, for a number of months, and only because they left the door open and told me where the meeting was, so I managed to get in. And it's quite clear that there's a major discussion going on at the moment at local authority level about the increasing need for them to meet their obligations to provide social care. The problem with that is they're not the only party that is involved or should be involved in that discussion and providing the care. As a result of the meeting with them, it's clear that even in Leicestershire, and there's no reason to presume that Leicestershire is a special case, only actually provide social care for 40% of that which they identify as being needed. And I suspect they get their figures from the providers that they use, who do 60% of their work privately. All good. Oh, wait, you see, until I sit down. Excellent. So the market at the moment is in the situation where the majority of people who require social care are actually what we call self-funders. They are going to have to pay for the provision of those services. And the problem we get with that is that once you get outside the local authority regulated, they're not regulated, but they do impose rules upon the people that they use. The rest of the market comprises largely small social care companies with many with less than 5 employees, who are trying to fill that vast gap of the 60% of people who are actually paying for their own social care. Currently, a lot of those small firms are having trouble in recruiting staff. If you pick up any paper, you'll find that there are a number of them are advertising for staff. They're all changing names, they're disappearing. There is no directory of those services that you can pick up if you are a self-funder and say, I want to go with this person. You haven't got a clue who is out there. And unfortunately, at the moment, the local authorities aren't interested in covering that because it's not their remit. And you can't go to your local GP practice because they are not allowed to give you a list. So there's a vast hole right in the middle where you want support that you can't actually go and find the people to talk to. And there's no sign of that actually changing in the future because nobody's addressing it. What is being spoken about is that local authorities are being given the power to raise their own funding to meet their obligations, and currently there's under review whether they'll be given special powers to raise that through either the tax that they can raise, or they're given special powers to collect in a special amount of money to fund that. But what is clear is that the system at the moment is totally disjointed, and there's no evidence that it's going to be pulled together. Why is that of interest to anybody? Well, it's of interest to anybody because unless you're lucky enough to be struck down by one of the really nasty illnesses that does attract support, or you happen to be blown up by a terrorist, you're actually going to be in a situation sometime in your life where you've got to address that provision of service. Now, what I do is I try and talk to people at an early date so that they address this issue before they get to the point where mum or dad is carted off with something that's going to not necessarily take them away this time, but they might have 2 or 3 years where they've got to provide some support which has not been requested or required before. The government are actually doing nothing to assist the people who are self-funding to find those services, or to, shall we say, regulate, because the other thing that is important to mention here is that the Care Act 2014 does not regulate domiciliary social care. It only regulates those care homes which provide it. So the only people who are regulated in that market are the care homes. The CQC do not regulate and have no power over the people who are providing you with domiciliary social care. And that is evident by the complete inconsistency in the service levels that people provide. In my experience, the local authority carers are the best, those that do work for local authority social care, at least have a set of rules which they are required to adhere to. So you do find that they will provide an acceptable level of care, but there's nothing in the marketplace at the moment that regulates anybody else. So you can get anybody coming through your door without qualification to provide you with social care. I do believe that at some point that's got to be addressed, because more and more emphasis is being put on having social care administered at home for obvious reasons, because the local authorities don't have to pay for it, and the residential care fees can be crippling. Sorry, I've lost my thought there. How does that impact on what I do? If you don't, you have a choice really when you're faced with this situation. You either accept the market as it is, or you do something about it. And you may be aware that we had an occurrence before Christmas where my mother-in-law passed away. We had actually been planning her care since she moved up to Lutterworth 15 years ago. So we entered into a contract with her, really, an unwritten contract with her, that we would care for her when she needed it. At the moment in this country, only 1% of the adult population have the piece of paper which allows you or assists you in retaining an element of control in a situation where somebody needs care who's close to you, and that's a health and welfare lasting power of attorney. I find it staggering that only 1% of adults have actually considered and put into place the one document which can allow either your support group or has spoken to the support group that you have around you, the people that you would expect to provide care for you when you need it, and that can extend to people in this room who won't have spoken to their support group, the people that they are expecting support from, that only 1% of people have actually put the one document in place that can assist them to retain control. Because my experience of the health service and the health system at the moment is that if you get into a situation where you're in the National Health Trust Hospital, whether you've had an occurrence of a fall or whatever and you've been taken in, they are under so much pressure and they need to tick so many boxes to allow that person back out of the hospital that it's actually counterproductive at the minute. There are beds being occupied by people who should be at home. Now, everybody talks about that, but nobody talks about the fact that you could have had a discussion 3 or 4 years ago with the person who's now lying in that bed and altered the house so they could come home. Because once you get into the position where they're in the hospital, they have to go through the procedure of making sure it's safe for people to come home. Why do we leave it that late? And we're all guilty of it, because I suspect in this room there's very few people. I have had the pleasure of dealing with it with Nicola, but I suspect that nobody else in this room has spoken and got to the stage where you've got that provision in place. And that's what I do most of the time. Anybody can write a will, anybody can do trusts. In certain respects, they're irrelevant because they deal with the aftermath. When the person's gone, that's what, if you've got a badly written will, it comes out then, because you've not done it with me. But really the key area going forward is those discussions with people who you are expected to support and those people that you are expecting to support you. I think that's really all I wanted to say this morning. How many minutes is that?
10 minutes, 14 seconds and 13 frames.
Well done.
Thank you very much. Questions, yeah.
You mentioned power of attorney.
Yeah.
I know there are two, one for
Yeah.
health and one for finance.
Yeah.
If you nominate somebody to be your attorney,
Yeah.
so say for, I mean, you did it for my mum,
Yeah.
but she passed away in February last year.
Yeah.
If I wanted to do one,
Mhm.
and I wanted to nominate somebody as my attorney,
Mhm.
how easy is it to change that? Because with the will, you can just rewrite a will and say,
Yeah.
this is my last will, interest and everything. But with an attorney,
You
how
can
easy is
you
it?
can nominate more than one attorney in the first place. So that's why it's important to have a discussion about who is the suitable person to be your attorney. Because what you will find, or I find, is if you get into a situation where it's been a last minute, we're putting a power of attorney in place because mum's feeling a bit wobbly, you will generally find that the person who gets nominated the attorney is not the most appropriate one for doing the job. It will tend to be the person who shouts loudest, who's decided that's what it's got to done. It won't be the person who's providing the support. So the answer to your question is you can have more than one named, and you can stipulate how they act. But if you wanted to take all of the attorneys off, you'd have to do the form again.
But if you just did the form again, it would supersede the
It would do.
previous, it's like a will.
Yeah, it would do, yeah.
Supersede the previous
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
You don't need to register it anywhere.
No, you'd need to register it, so the latest registered one would be the one that...
So you would go about and take
It's
it.
very unusual that people do it.
Do what? Register it?
Redo
Re-register.
their powers of attorney, yeah.
And presumably you can do it any time. You don't have to wait until you want.
No,
to.
no, and that's
So everybody should have a will, and everybody should have a power of attorney. Is what you're saying.
yes, or they should have the discussions about. People find it very difficult to broach that question with dad.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about that generation. I'm talking.
Yeah. There's no reason why you can't do it now. But before you put the paperwork in place, is what I'm saying is you need to have a discussion about with the people that you feel are going to be able to support you, or you'd expect them to support you. Because those discussions can uncover things like, well, I can't do that, I'm not going to do this. And you end up with a totally inappropriate person being your attorney. And that's why it's important to have those discussions. And the next stage from that is, if there's somebody who's giving up a significant opportunity to be your attorney, then that should be reflected elsewhere.
And do the attorneys have to agree with what or what, or can one attorney just say,
Well, you can nominate just one to do it, yeah. And you can nominate whether they act jointly or and don't get them acting jointly, because they'll never get, never agree on anything.
Well, like executives and stuff.
Yeah, don't talk to me about executives.
Start doing it all.
Yeah. But that happened quite late on, didn't it? There's no reason why that discussion, and I suspect in your own mind you perhaps felt that discussion should have taken place significantly before the time it did. But everybody's in the same boat.
You have to get the permission of the person who is wobbly.
Yeah,
for you to do it.
yeah.
And sometimes you have to wait
Yeah.
until they're a bit
Yeah.
frail.
But still knowing what they're signing. And that is the other issue with leaving it too late, because nobody knows when somebody's going to lose capacity, and it can happen overnight.
Can you be an executor and a power of attorney?
Yeah.
See, we've got complete control over my father-in-law, to the fact that even if he goes and cashes a cheque, which is over a certain amount, HSBC ring us and let us know. Because he was conned by some people who are now going to go to prison. Fortunately, not by as much as some of the amounts that other people were done. And we went into HSBC and they could not have been more helpful. If he comes into the counter, they won't deal with him until they've given us a telephone call, or given one of three people a telephone call to make sure that it's quite legitimate. So
But do you have the health and welfare one in place as well?
We've got everything in place.
Right.
Yeah, same as when I retired. It was all done for. That was
You've
20
retired?
Well, no. What I mean, when I left the company I was working with, we've got the pensions and everything. Yeah, sorry, apologies.
They're shooting them next
we
week.
did it straight away then because,
Yeah.
I was 60, so we give it to Tim and Emma. The thing that staggers me is the incompetence of the local authorities and the lack of communication between the county council and the local one. When Mum went into a home and we had everything tied up for her, and we had to pay a certain amount of money per week, I had to go into Daventry District Council. They went through all my finances, fine-tooth comb. I then had to sign a legal document which was sub-signed by another person. Really, I had to jump through the hoop. With regard to the funding, they put down that Mum's pension was included in the contributions. So as soon as she went into the home,
She had the
lo and
money.
behold, the pension was taken off her.
Yeah.
So all of the fundamental financial issues that Daventry District Council looked at, they were totally incompetent in not knowing that the county council would take the pension, and yet they put it in the equation. On the radio about a month ago was the lady from the county council saying, we give this amount per person. So I rang up and I said to her, no you don't. She said, how do you mean? I said, you take the pension off. She said, I don't, oh do we? And that was the leader of the county council. I said, yes you do. Oh, she said, I'll have a look at that. And I said, well I'm sorry, I'm not interested in your opinion, I'm telling you the facts because I was there and you did it.
How many minutes has he had?
Going on his soapbox again.
No, but this is how crazy it is.
Well, you've got no. But what if? Let's try and unravel what David said. Local authorities have to, if you go into a local authority home, they will pay a certain figure for the provision of that care. The problem that the local authorities have got at the moment is that residential homes and domiciliary care providers are deserting the sinking ship. They've been saying for some considerable time that the county council or the local authority who is responsible for providing them, paying for some care, if they are in that case, are not paying them enough. So they are looking to the self-funding market to make their money. And there was the Leicester Adult Social Care, because they have a different hat depending on what they're talking about, last week had a meeting where they are opening up their procurement facility to smaller businesses. They're saying, our normal providers are not providing us with enough cover for our obligations. So what are they doing? They're going to small, unregulated care companies and saying, you can come and have our business. I don't think that's very healthy, to be honest. Because the one thing they won't be able to do with those smaller businesses is to say, this is the training you will put in place for your staff, because they won't be able to do it. So you can see that the system is just creaking at the edges. It's at the point of collapse, to be honest. And when the last meeting I went to with the Leicester County Council about this, I said to them, you're not looking in the big abyss that is the self-funding hole, because you're not required to. But unless you take on board all of that, there's going to be no coherent social care policy in this country. And that's why that bit of paper is important.
But if there's nobody monitoring the level of care given, there's nobody to complain to.
Correct. Well, you even had...
So even if the level of care is
Yeah.
really bad,
Yeah.
that
The CQC have no authority over domiciliary care whatsoever. It's not regulated.
appalling, the way
It is.
the person is being treated is appalling.
Yeah.
Because there's nobody who's saying, well, they haven't reached this.
And I don't know why the Social Care Act didn't address that, didn't include everybody. You even had the Health Secretary was on the television a couple of months ago saying, yes, they do cover it. No, they don't. Read your own act. It's not in there. You have no recourse if
So what
care is
would be
admitted at home.
reasonable, what would average fees for residential care at the moment?
They vary per week, per month.
Per week, per month, whatever.
You could be talking easily 1,100 quid a week, depending on where you go.
And that's
Yeah, I don't know what
residential.
what yours residential.
Nursing isn't more.
Well, there doesn't. This is where we're getting mixed up. You see, nursing's health. Yeah, so that's healthcare.
Can I ask, if you are paying to migrate off the London, even
Yeah,
for his care.
yeah.
And obviously he was taken out of home savings,
Yeah, yeah,
etc.
yeah.
Is there a level of how much they can go? Or you can't be left with anything at the end?
Well, there is supposedly a top level, but they don't. That current level that's in place only takes account of the care needs. It doesn't take care of other accommodation costs, which the care home might bung on top of that. And cynically, the level that they've set it up at the moment, the total amount you're supposed to pay, funnily enough, coincides with the amount that an average person would be expected, the term an average person would be expected to be in a residential home before they snuff it, a couple of years.
Are they going to bring back euthanasia then?
Oh, I certainly hope so.
So what's the difference then? Yeah. If you die at the home, so you're in the home and you've used up all your savings to pay for it.
You could take potentially, yeah.
Well, I thought they would leave you with 10, 15 grand.
And isn't that everything?
You could end up being evicted.
Yeah.
If you run out of money, that's it. It's not there.
Well, that's an issue that none of the care homes will address.
They do.
But they do.
They do.
They do.
Put you into a local, see with mum would cost, just, this is going back 3 or 4 years, it cost £1,000 a week at Clifton Court.
Yeah.
And the county council said they'd pay £495, which is their allowance, it's 400
Yeah.
and something.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's all went into the equation, and then having gone all into the
Yeah.
equation, lo and behold, mum's pension was taken away. So they didn't pay that amount of money. They paid that amount of money
Less. Yeah.
the monthly pension that my mum got. So they're complete incompetence. They ain't know what P was doing.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, but there is, you could get to a situation, and there have been cases where people have been evicted from care homes because they've run out of funds. And if you're going there as a self-funder rather than as a local authority assisted, then it's even more likely that you're going to be.
So is it better then to make sure that you've planned your finances accordingly?
Oh, absolutely.
Have them gifts and everything, basically distribute it all and go in there as a person without any money?
I didn't say that. But I won't be drawn on that. What the bloody hell do you think I do?
If you go in with no money,
Yeah.
you go into a care home that can only be funded by local authority
Yeah.
Yeah.
to the value of the service
Yeah.
of that amount of money. And some of them we saw when this is going back 5, 6 years, probably longer, are not very nice. So
Well, I think it's a
no-win situation.
they're all getting less nice. But what I would say to you, David, is unless somebody is going for a real top-notch one, there's one in Rugby, I think they're the bee's knees, and they charge, I think it's about £2,000
Yeah,
a
another
week.
one you need.
a week
Yeah,
being in there.
Oaklands or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. And they're an exception to the rule. There are an awful lot of residential care homes out there that are worse than a local authority funded. And the problem comes with nobody approaches this until, let's say, mum has had a stroke and she's got to go somewhere. So you never do any research. There's no database of, you can get them from somewhere, but it's not obvious of the residential care homes in your area. And you will never take mum round it and say, well, you know, if something happened, mum, which one would you want to go in? And you actually never do the research.
It's just which one's available.
Which one's available at the time? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thanks for all those questions. It's an area which is quite interesting.